This is definitely an air-to-air combat movie. All the aircraft and air-to-air shots in the film were shot with a real-time camera. It was supported by the French Ministry of Defense and the Air Force. There is also a limited edition air-to-air version of the advanced Huanying 2000 fighter jet. In the film, Huanying 2000 and all kinds of aircraft are flying fast. The sound of the warplanes is loud and powerful. The whole screen is full of air-to-air movements. Even the big scene of bombing the plane is used. It is worth mentioning that this film was shot in Paris. In this film, not only does the fighter jet travel between life and death, but also makes the audience experience an unprecedented sense of reality. At the same time, it greatly satisfies all men's dreams of flying in the blue sky and white clouds. In the film, not only does it show the life and death of an air-to-air fighter jet, but also follows the view of the fighter jet and feels the romantic beauty of the French. It can be said that it is a step. In France and even Europe, there is no digital special effects or CGI production. It completely relies on the real scene to complete all shots. This is also a significant feature that is different from the American Hollywood shooting method. The director even installed 6 panoramic high-definition cameras in Huanying 2000. They can communicate at a height of 50,000 feet. The director used the sound to shoot various wonderful scenes. The Air Force Command sent Huanying 2000 fighter jets to fly indefinitely. At the same time, it also got the Alamer and Djibouti Air Force Base. The best fighter jet pilots cooperated with each other. This film became an unprecedented air-to-air war movie. It is also a film that military fans and movie fans can watch. At the French arms dealer Dassault, plans to show customers a Huanying 2000 with a full tank. As a result, the pilot was assassinated and killed by terrorists. After the plane took off, there were 2 rolling engines in the air. Huanying fighter jet disappeared in the North Sea. The plane was lost before it had time to perform. This is the man who hit the French army. Huanying 2000 quickly contacted the exercise force in the air in the North Sea. The location of the plane's disappearance has been transmitted. The Air Force has arranged for the ace pilot, Mark, and the pilot, Xiao Shuai, to carry out the mission. At this time, Huanying 2000 has escaped the radar tracking. According to the planned route, Huanying 2000 followed an Airbus A340 and then hid under the belly of the passenger plane. This picture is so beautiful that it is indescribable. At the same time, 2 Huanying 2000 fighter jets are heading for the hidden airport. A Huanying 2000 fighter jet is hiding at the bottom of the Boeing passenger plane. Huanying 2000 is looking for a place to hide from the ground and the fighter jet's radar. However, there are only 4 lines of fire in a normal passenger plane. Carefully, Antoni found the 5th line of fire in the passenger plane. The 2 pilots accelerated to the left and right. It was indeed the Huanying 2000 fighter jet that disappeared from the air show. Antoni used a radio to identify the identity of the Huanying 2000 fighter jet. Then he swung his wings and left with the platoon. At this time, the Huanying pilot did not respond at all and turned around to accelerate after provoking him. The 2 pilots drove together to chase the Huanying 2000 fighter jet. When Antoni followed him to accelerate down, the Huanying 2000 suddenly accelerated to the left and lost sight. Just when they thought the Huanying 2000 fighter jet had escaped, Antoni turned around like a ghost and shook the fighter jet. This made the Huanying 2000 get cold sweat and called Antoni for help. At the same time, the Huanying 2000's plane alarm was ringing nonstop. This indicated that the fighter jet had been locked by the enemy's fire control radar. Antoni rushed to the base and called for an emergency attack, but the base forbade them to fire and ordered them to cancel the action to return to the base. 2000 has locked the Huanying 2000, and the missile has been ignited. The 2000 is about to be shot down. At this critical moment, Antoni disobeyed his superior's order and then pressed the fire button without hesitation. In the end, the Huanying 2000 was hit and disintegrated directly in the air. The 2 pilots successfully returned to the base. The chief of staff asked the 2 pilots to stop and wait for the results of the investigation. The military also set up a special investigation team to investigate the incident. The Huanying 2000 was shot down by a missile. Obviously, Antoni's approach was right, but the chief of staff did not report the truth. At the hearing, the chief of staff tampered with the image of the flight and erased the screen when the Huanying was launched. In the end, the 2 pilots were fired from the Air Force. In order to maintain their reputation, they worked in an aircraft show company. Although they have regrets, they can't help it. On the other hand, in order to verify the performance of different fighters, the arms manufacturer proposed to let the US F-16 and the French Huanying 2000 to compete again. Under the same conditions, the order was made based on the performance of the fighter. The military considered the political factors of other countries and the risk of flying, and decided to let Antoni and Sebas participate in this flight competition. They promised that if they completed this task, they could return to their original position and sent 2 Wanying fighters of the same model to protect the aircraft. The 3 Wanyings flew out of the runway under the night fog. Before the fighter crossed the airspace of Bangladesh, the 3 fighters completed the refueling in the air in advance and used a method of recharging flight, which made the ground radar think it was an ordinary civilian aircraft. In order to avoid the radar, they could only fly over the low-altitude terrain. The constant ascending and descending caused the fuel to be consumed quickly, and the radar showed that there was an abandoned airport not far away. Antoni had no choice but to order the emergency landing and wait for rescue, but he didn't expect that the abandoned airport was guarded by armed men. The 3 stable fighters were surrounded by terrorists in an instant. It turned out that the arms dealer was set up by the terrorists from the beginning, and they were planning a plot today. The 3 Wanying fighters were forced to enter and leave the abandoned airport, but who knew that they would be surrounded by armed rebels as soon as they landed. The few who did not dare to resist tried to resist, but the enemy was too heavy for them, and the female pilot was thrown into the cargo car and taken away. Another stubborn pilot tried to take the weapon, but he was shot by the terrorists. Antoni concentrated on closing the start button when he was close to the fuselage. The next day, the terrorists found that the plane could not start, and found Antoni and asked him to teach him how to drive the Wanying fighter. They finally waited for a chance to escape. Antoni deliberately fooled the enemy into flying at supersonic speed to create noise.